Welcome to The Explainer. You ever use an app like Netflix and wonder, how in the world are they streaming this to millions of people right now without everything just crashing? Well, the answer is a really cool field called system design, and today we're going to break it all down.
Seriously, think about it. When you first start coding, getting something to work for yourself or maybe a few friends feels like a huge win. But going from that to serving a massive global audience, that feels like pure magic. But you know what? It's not magic. It's a discipline, a craft, and it's what separates a garage project from a global phenomenon.
And that's really the first big hurdle, right? Making that leap from just writing lines of code to actually architecting a whole system that can handle that kind of scale. It is a completely different ballgame, and it forces you to think in a totally new way.
So what is system design really? Okay, think of it like this. It's the architectural blueprint for a massive skyscraper. You wouldn't just start pouring concrete and stacking bricks, right? No, you need a detailed plan for the foundation, the structure, the plumbing, everything. System design is that blueprint, but for software. It's what makes sure your app can handle the pressure and not fall over.
And this slide, it just nails the difference. When you're coding, you're down in the weeds. You're focused on the how to make this one feature work perfectly. But with system design, you're suddenly like a general on a hilltop. You're looking at the whole battlefield, figuring out the why behind the entire structure, and making those big strategic decisions.
So how do you even begin to tackle something so complex? Well, you don't just start throwing components together and hoping for the best. You need a guide. You need a set of core principles, kind of like an architect's compass that points you toward a solution that actually works and hopefully is even a little bit elegant.
And these are the true unsung heroes of any great system. You see, users don't notice them when they're working. These aren't flashy features. They are the invisible foundation that keeps your application from falling apart when things get wild. Honestly, every great system is built on these 4 pillars.
All right, let's start with the big one, scalability. This is all about your system's ability to handle a huge, sudden increase in traffic without even breaking a sweat. Imagine a tiny coffee shop that could instantly transform into a giant stadium cafe, serving thousands of people, but the coffee quality and service speed stay exactly the same. That's scalability.
Now, there are 2 main ways you can get there. You can scale up, which is like giving your one server steroids, making it bigger and more powerful, or you can scale out, which is more like hiring a bunch more people for your team. Most modern systems go for scaling out because even though it's a bit more complex to manage, it's way more flexible and usually cheaper in the long run.
Okay, next up is availability. This is super straightforward. Is your system online and working when people need it? We measure this in nines, which is just a shorthand for the percentage of uptime. And as you're about to see, the difference between 2 nines and 5 nines is, well, it's massive.
I mean, just look at this chart. It's kind of mind-blowing. The jump from 99% to 99.9% availability is the difference between your service being down for over 3.5 days a year versus less than 9 hours. And when you get to 5 nines, we're talking about just over 5 minutes of downtime in an entire year. For a big company, that difference is literally millions of dollars.
Okay, so we want our system to be scalable, and we want it to be highly available. Simple enough, right? Well, this is where it gets tricky. Because when you start trying to have everything, you run into the hardest part of system design. There is no free lunch. You always have to make trade-offs.
I mean, wouldn't that be the dream? A system that can scale to infinity, is available 100% of the time, and every piece of data is perfectly, instantly consistent everywhere. It's what every architect dreams of building, but unfortunately, it's just that, a dream.
Yeah, reality has other plans. In the real world, networks fail. Servers crash. And when that happens, you're forced to make a very tough choice. There's this famous idea in computer science called the CAP theorem, and it basically says you can't have it all. When your distributed system has a network problem, you can have consistency or you can have availability. You have to pick one. And this right here is the classic trade-off. It's a fundamental choice. Do you want your system to be like a bank, where the data has to be perfectly consistent, even if it means a slight delay? Or do you want it to be like your social media feed, which is always online and responsive, even if it means you might briefly see some slightly out-of-date information? There's no right answer, but the choice you make defines your entire architecture. So we've talked about the big ideas, the principles, the trade-offs, but how do you actually build this stuff? Well, here's the good news. You don't have to start from scratch. Architects have a whole toolkit of standard, proven components they use to put systems together.
And this is really the beauty of modern system design. It's like playing with Legos. You've got all these different fundamental blocks, and each one has a very specific job. You can then combine them in all sorts of creative ways to build a system that's perfectly suited for whatever problem you're trying to solve.
And here are some of the most common Legos in the box. A load balancer? That's your traffic cop, telling requests where to go. A cache? That's like your system's short-term memory for stuff it needs to grab fast. A CDN? That's a network of mini warehouses all over the world that store your content close to your users so it loads super quickly. All of these are essential tools. But wait, before you get all excited and start snapping those building blocks together, there's a crucial first step. A quick, back-of-the-envelope calculation. This is just a rough, simple estimate to figure out if your plan is even in the right ballpark. A little bit of math here can save you from a world of pain later on.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. We've gone from the core principles all the way to the actual building blocks. So now, let's talk about how you can use all this knowledge to tackle one of the toughest but most rewarding interviews out there, the system design interview.
And here's the absolute most important thing you need to remember going in. It is not a test to see if you know the one right answer. There often isn't one. What they want to see is how you think. They want to watch you wrestle with the problem, so you've got to think out loud and explain your reasoning as you go. So the best way to do it is to turn the interview into a collaborative design session. Start by asking a ton of questions to really understand the requirements. Then narrow the scope. You're not building the whole thing in 45 minutes. And most importantly, engage your interviewer. Talk through your decisions. Explain why you're choosing one thing over another. Make them part of the process. Because at the end of the day, that's what system design is. It's this beautiful mix of hard science and creative art. It's about using all that technical knowledge to solve problems in a way that's not just functional, but also robust and elegant. So next time you're scrolling through your favorite app, just take a second to appreciate the incredible artistry that went into making it feel so simple. And hey, who knows, maybe you'll be the one designing the next big thing.